Hi there, it's Dean Odell with Seven Gables Real Estate and the Odell Group. It is time for another Tustin Talks. This is the week of July 28th, and we're going to try something a little different this week. We are going to look back a little bit in time, and we're going to try to explain the confusion here in the market. So, as we know, headlines are made to terrify, not to clarify. So we're going to try to clarify today. So this is going to be a little bit longer Tustin Talks than normal. Orange County data is going to be in the back of this, but let's start right now with trying to create some clarity. Here's what we want to do. There was somewhat of a panic in the end of 2022. You might remember that. So we saw things going up, inventories increasing. Then it started to change, but let's try to figure out why that happened. So if we were to look back at the consumer price survey back then, what we would have seen is towards the end of 2022, almost 37% of the people thought that prices were going to go down over the next 12 months. So that was the attitude going into 2023. And you can see how that compared with previous years and what's kind of the average attitude, right? So that was partially because of these over-the-top forecasts at the end of 2022. And the forecasts out there, I mean, they were not people that were not qualified to be making forecasts. So let's take a look at some of the stuff that was said back then, okay? Here you go. You have Jeremy Siegel. I mean, this guy's only the professor of the Wharton School of Business, pretty prestigious institute. He was calling for prices to fall 10 to 15% nationally. Now, this is a national presentation I'm giving you, but our housing market does reflect this somewhat, okay? So there are pockets in the U.S., that went unusually crazy, places like Boise, Idaho, places like Austin, Texas. But overall, this is pretty accurate for the general Orange County market and Southern California market. So let's just look at this. Goldman Sachs. Well, I think we've all heard of Goldman Sachs. They were calling for 5 to 10% decline from the peak. And they were hedging themselves there, if you read further, saying that it could even decline more than their model suggests. Now, then we move to Moody's Analytics, another prestigious institution. They said, it's going to be hard for sellers to cut their asking prices because psychologically they look on Zillow and now their house is worth less than what they saw before. And they're saying, well, they're not going to be able to get away with not selling, not this time. Sellers are caving on their prices. Let's just buckle in. Let's assume that the rates are going to stay right around 6.5%. The economy's going to in a recession. And then housing prices are surely going to fall, 10%. And that these declines are going to happen sooner than later. So just remember, this was back in the third quarter of last year, they were talking like this. So what did those headlines cost us? I mean, what happened here as a result of those headlines? Well, a lot of people started talking about the fact that they saw a repeat of 2008. They thought the whole thing was just going to implode. And, if you've been watching our forecasts or our information, we've just said it's all a function of supply and demand, right? We can only report on what's going on in the present. The forecasting, that's a guessing game, right? And here we go. We've got experts, some of the top experts saying that things were going to go bad. Now, what happened here? These, again, people who believe the prices are going to go down in the next 12 months. Look how this has been falling, even while rates have been going up, okay? So you can see this isn't killing it right now. We're actually seeing that people believe both prices and mortgage rates will fall. Well, guess what? That didn't happen either. So now everybody said, okay, well, people are just going to panic and put their home on the market. And did that happen? Well, it did somewhat. I mean, some people said, hey, you know what? I'm not going to go through this again. I'm not going to watch this great recession stuff. And they put their homes on the market, right? And so back in October, Bill McBride, who's founder of Calculated Risk, he basically said, hey, I'm adjusting my outlook. I think prices are going to be in like a 7-year purgatory here because he thought that a 10% decrease in prices seemed likely. However, the inventory surge of 2022 was somewhat of a head fake. Okay, so this is what he was seeing towards the end of the year in October. And some potential sellers, they quickly put their homes on the market, probably remembering what happened in the past. But that surge, it ended pretty quickly. This is where people thought inventory was going to go. This was the predictions back then, that it was going to do nothing but just continue to go up since June of last year. And in actuality, this is what happened instead. inventory continued to decline nationally. And here in Orange County, we saw the same thing happen. Then if we look, what's the next dialogue we're going to have here? There's going to be a recession due to a tsunami of foreclosures. There's been this moratorium that's gone on for the last couple of years. There's skeletons in the closet. There's going to be all these problems. And we kept telling you guys back then, well, if someone's having problems, they can just sell. People have plenty of equity in their homes. It's not like people were backwards, right? It's not like the Great Recession. And sure enough, this was, the foreclosures history graph here. And you can see in the first 6 months of this year, sure, we're up to 186,000 foreclosures nationally, okay? And the headlines are going to tell you, oh, that's double or triple. Oh my God, they're so up. But look at what the norm is, you guys, all right? Look at back when things were really bad, 2009, 2010. Look where we are comparatively now. We're not even anywhere close, okay? As a matter of fact, I was looking at the Orange County foreclosures last month. There were 10 in our entire county. So not in a foreclosure market either. So, what actually did end up happening in 2022, as we look back, is in 2022, if we look at the 48-year average of price appreciation, that would be the dark blue in here. Okay, that's kind of the normal pattern, seasonal pattern. We see prices go up, they peak in the spring, and then they start to come down month by month. I tell people this all the time. If I plotted prices on a monthly basis, you'd see they go up basically in the first half and they slide down in the second half, and then you get the average for the whole year. Well, in 2022, that's exactly what happened. But because of the overcorrection of prices moving too quickly in the first 6 months of 2022, then we had to have a correction on the opposite side where we saw prices go down. So in the end, it all kind of worked itself out, right? Because we're getting back into more seasonal patterns now. We're not in COVID anymore. We're way past all that. And the market's starting to act like the market should act in terms of seasonal patterns. So let's look back on that consumer price survey again. 37% of the people thought that the market was going down in the next 12 months. Well, now where are we? We're down to 26%. So only 1 in 4 people still think the market's going to go down. That means 3 out of 4 people don't. So we all get to form our own opinions. That's the beauty of this. But let's talk about where our opinions come from. Are they coming from the gut? Are they coming from analytics? Are they coming from bigger things? Are we predicting that the stock market's going to crash, that people are going to lose their jobs? And where are those analytics coming from, right? So we got to look at all that. And right now, we're starting to hear better and better news on the economy. So I'm not sure if we all believe that or if we don't. But again, everybody gets to form their opinion, right? But going into this right now, we are at 1 out of 4 people still believe that prices are going to depreciate. So let's look at home prices in 2023. These next 2 screens are really the authority providers in data, okay? If we look at who's providing this data and what the data says, it again verifies what happened last year and now what's happening so far this year. So if you look at where prices were going up 1.6% a month, 1.9% a month, 2% a month, it's just, it's unsustainable, right? Then it corrected in the second half of the year. And then you look at where we are now, 3-4 months of data is coming in and it's ticking back up again, right? So we're getting back into a normal average of appreciation rate. Zillow's showing the same thing. Black Knight's showing the same thing. Freddie Mac's showing the same thing. So now we have 6 different authorities in tracking analytics that are showing the same thing, consistent. So the question becomes, of course, well, what's going to happen going forward from here? So this is what Andy Walden, Vice President of Enterprise Research at Black Knight, is saying. He's saying there's no doubt that the housing market has reignited from a home price perspective. Firming prices have now fully erased the pullback we tracked through the second half of last year and lifted the seasonally adjusted prices back to record highs in May. So here in Orange County, we're seeing things that are similar. So if you look at where we are right now, it's still a supply-demand thing, you guys. We have 2,239 homes. You could see where we were 2 weeks ago. You could see where we were last year, and you could see where we were 3 years ago. That 3 years ago, 6,776, that's about a third of the inventory that we have. So how are our prices going to go down when we only have 1/3 of the inventory? And we're still in a situation where when we look at demand, that we still have demand out there, even though it's low. It's hard to measure it accurately because we don't have the supply, right? We don't have the supply to really measure it. And we know from our own business that we're still getting multiple offers on almost all our listings. So there's definitely demand out there. It's not like it was, but it's still pretty darn good for the sellers. Now let's look at where we are in the demand cycle. If you look here, what you'll see is that this is typically where Orange County demand starts to meet its peak for the year. It's a seasonal thing. We're back into a regular seasonal pattern. So we'll see if this holds true. And if it holds true, next 30 days, that's where we're going to peak on demand. And then we'll start getting into a seasonal change where demand will start to drop off. But even for sellers, there's such a limited inventory, it's still going to be good to sell throughout the whole year. So let's look at Orange County demand year over year. You can see where we are today. You can see where we were 2 weeks ago, and you can see where we were last year. And look at that 3-year average again, 2578. So we are about 1,000 homes, almost 40% lower than that, right? This is because of the lack of inventory, certainly contributing to this problem. So let's look at Orange County expected marketing time. Today, we're at 45 days. Last year, look at that, we were at 72. So the speed of the market is actually better than it was last year. And the 3-year average is 80. So we're still moving at a faster clip because of the relationship of supply and demand. We look at what's going on by price range, and you can see we have a hot sellers market all the way up to $2 million. 2 to 4 is a slight sellers, and a deep buyers market, anything over $4 million, the buyers have the leverage. So if you look, for instance, at the $4 to $6 million range, you'll see it only makes up 1% of our market demand, but yet it's 7% of the inventory. Simply said, that's 7 homes for every 1 buyer, right? You can see last year's speed of the market and all the price ranges versus this year's and how that compares. So thanks for hanging in there. I know this is a little longer than usual. My advice for buyers and sellers, buyers, you know what? If you're waiting for the market to crash, it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. Again, don't get fear of missing out. Be patient, pick the right house, and buy for the long term. Okay, that's my best advice I can give you guys right now. And sellers, you know what? Congratulations. Things continue to go your way. It's just absolutely amazing. I've never seen anything like this. But different agents do yield different results. Okay, so if you want the best results, you really need to seek out the right agent. Not everybody is equipped to get you the most money for your home. I know that we are. We have a process that has proven itself many times over that it's going to get you top dollar, and we'd love to discuss that with you. We'll get your house ready for the market. We'll negotiate it better than anyone else, and we'll get it sold for you. Well, guys, that wraps up Tustin Talks. I guess where this market takes us is all dependent at this point on the economy. And what are we hearing in the news? Consumer confidence at a 2-year high. Do you believe it or don't you believe it? I would love to hear the comments this week. Let me know how things are going in your world. Are things getting better? Are you more confident? Is your business better than it was? I would love to hear, because we are really trying to get a vibe on this economy. So anyway, we will see you on the next Tustin Talks. Thanks for tuning in.